Everybody, what's going on? I'm Fabian for Liberty, fabianforliberty.com. Okay, so the collapse of OPEC and the Saudis, I'm going to make a pretty bold prediction in this video. Many of you know that a year ago I was talking about how the OPEC would break up. And that's clearly happening. I did a video about this 2 weeks ago. I think it was Investors Business Daily was talking about how the alliance, or the cartel, not an alliance, the cartel that comes together to manipulate oil prices was falling apart because a lot of the smaller oil producers were not happy that the Saudis were not cutting production to boost oil, because the Saudis are trying to basically capture more market share. And I'm going to go over 3 points of what I think is leading to the collapse of oil prices. By the way, let me just say that I broke this down in detail about the global economic reset call that I made about the downfall of OPEC on my podcast today. It's a new episode. You can click the link down below. If you haven't heard it before, please subscribe. And I also talk about, another prediction, I guess, that was kind of an easy one to call. And I think all of us, or many of us, that watch these videos would agree, which was the Republicans, of course, selling out once again. Boy, it didn't even take them 45 days, and already they fully funded Obamacare, and they fully funded Obama's executive amnesty by fiat that he rolled out with a few weeks ago. So who saw that one coming? Or, it's like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. I mean, of course we did, right? These people are diabolical, all right? Now, London Telegraph had an interesting article. Headline is, Bank of America sees $50 oil as OPEC dies. It goes on to talk about how the OPEC oil cartel, and this is written by Ambrose Evans Pritchard, a great writer for the London Telegraph. The OPEC oil cartel no longer exists in any meaningful sense, and crude prices will slump to $50 a barrel over the coming months as market forces shake out the weakest producers. Now, here's 3 reasons why oil is collapsing right now. Number one is that the Saudis recognized, Saudis being the number one, or they were the number one oil producer, they're all freaked out because America is now the number one oil producer. But for America to be the number one oil producer, oil needs to be above $55, $60 a barrel, because a lot of the new wells that are being that they're using with this shale and everything else, they're not profitable at $50 oil or $45 oil. In fact, they have to be at $60, most of them, to be profitable, and they can only lose money so much. Here we go. It says that the bank said, as Bank of America said in its current year-end report, that at least 15% of U.S. oil shale producers are losing money at current prices, and more than half will be underwater if U.S. crude falls below $55 a barrel. The high-cost producers in the Permian Basin will be the first to feel the pain, quote-unquote, and may soon have to cut back on production. So, point number one, the Saudis, who, are like America's best ally, that's what they'll have you believe, even though they were instrumental in carrying out 9/11. Point is that they are directly attacking oil production in the U.S. And I bet you, if you did a lot of research, or if this was uncovered, and maybe 50 years from now it will be uncovered, I would guarantee the Saudis have been one of the biggest supporters of Obama not allowing the Keystone Pipeline to be built. I'm just going to say that. Number two, another reason we see oil collapsing is because the warmongers, the neoconservatives, are hell-bent on the destruction of Russia and Iran. Now, of course, Russia, I've often told you, is their economy is like a natural gas company, or it's like a big energy company. It's oil and natural gas. Well, not only do we see oil prices going down, we see liquefied natural gas plummeting, which means Europe can now buy it cheaper, potentially from the United States, than have to go through Russia. But see, if I'm Russia, and if I was the president of Russia, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, wow, I have international forces coming together, directly manipulating the price of a collapse. It's no different than, in 2008, the BBC reported that the Russians were, with the Chinese, plotted on the destruction of the U.S. dollar and the U.S. stock market. And the Russians, many believe, were behind the bear raid of Bear Stearns. Well, it's no different now with the West, in essence, doing the same thing in collusion with a lot of these Arab countries to try to cripple the Russians and destroy their economy. And for that matter, the Iranians as well. So that is the warmonger neoconservative faction that runs real, just, there's a lot of them in both parties, Democrats, Republicans, all over. Okay, they are like a cancer in the political system, if you will. Here's the third one, which I think is probably the most important. The Saudis are probably beginning to realize that the U.S. militarily may not hold its commitment to back them up. Why do I say that? Well, you look at NATO really kind of quivering as far as standing up to the Russians, or for that matter, look at the fact that the Saudis are probably sitting back and saying, the Americans spent trillions of dollars in Iraq, and pretty much in about 6 months just let it go to hell, where ISIS took over a third of the country. So if they're allowing that to happen in Iraq, the third largest oil field, and I'm sure the Saudis have made the link because the Saudis fund ISIS as well, but the West is funding ISIS, and it's kind of like, the mercenary group. It's like, who they're going to do the bidding of the highest paymaster, if you will. The Saudis are beginning to freak out about this, I believe. And they're making contingency plans. And one of the contingency plans, going to the prediction that I'm going to make right now, is that the Saudis will unpeg their oil sales from the US dollar. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to replace it with another currency, the Chinese dollar or whatever it may be, but they will. Remember, the Chinese are now their number one oil buyers. Okay? They will say, we'll just, do a bilateral trade agreement like we've been doing with, like all these other countries are doing, and it's, no big deal. And of course, for many that don't know what the petrodollar is all about, it isn't a big deal. But if you know what the petrodollar is about, which is the only reason the dollar continues to be the world reserve currency, is because countries need dollars to buy oil, for the most part, and that's been challenged by Russia and China and Iran. It means real instability for the US dollar, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a wild card. It is an absolute wild card. The world is absolutely on fire. Everything that we've known over the last 20, 30 years is fundamentally, radically, revolutionizing, changing right now as we speak. And I'll tell you, having a longer view of this, look, I'm as happy as the next person, that oil prices have gone. I mean, out here in California, I was in Florida last week, oil prices were below $3. Out here in California, I was paying $4.70 a gallon. Now it's down to $3.39 a gallon at the local Chevron down the street. So that's great. I mean, more money in my pocket, more money in the pocket of those that really, really need it, that have been devastated by this Obama economy. But there's a price to pay long term. And those are the three that I've talked about. One last quick point I want to say, too, is that the warmongers who want to collapse Russia and Iran, this is the quintessential type of trade war we're seeing break out right now. It's really more economic sabotage is what it is. Love to hear your feedback on this. I'm Fabian for Liberty, Fabian Calvo. Remember, the link to the podcast is down below. Subscribe and leave me a review. I'd appreciate that. And you also get it on your phone or Android device, the Fabian Calvo app, to listen to all the podcasts there as well. Thanks for watching. I'm out.